All suffering arises from the mind, and all liberation, too, begins with the mind. My friends, have you ever felt that life is fleeting, that suffering fills every corner of existence? We seek joy, yet it slips through our fingers. We try to avoid suffering, yet it follows us relentlessly. Where, then, can we seek the truth? How do we walk the path of liberation? The Buddha has taught that all beings possess an innate, pure Buddha nature. Yet we are blinded by our own ignorance and desires, unable to see it clearly. Thus, for those who seek the path, the first step is to awaken the mind, to give rise to the aspiration for enlightenment. This first stirring of the heart toward awakening is called Balshim, the mind for enlightenment. And so, I present to you today a guide for this journey, the Treatise on Arouse Your Mind and Practice, a teaching on how to set one's mind on the path and walk it with sincerity. If you wish to walk the right path, first, set your mind upon it. Without a firm mind, how can one ever reach the gates of liberation? This teaching speaks about one essential truth, the necessity of cholishim, the deep and earnest desire to transcend the suffering of this fleeting world. Only when we recognize the impermanence of all things and cultivate great compassion for all beings can we truly embark on the path of practice. The Treatise on Arouse Your Mind and Practice is a beacon of light for those who wish to seek enlightenment. May you hear these words and with them, awaken the heart and take your first step toward true practice. Oh, the Buddhas, adorn Nirvana's palace of calm extinction. Because for kalpas, as many as the sea is vast, they have renounced desires and practiced difficult religious feats. Sentient beings, whirl through the door of samsara's burning house, because for innumerable lifetimes, they have not renounced greed and desire. Unobstructed are the halls of heaven, but few are those who go there, for people take the three poisons and the afflictions as their own personal wealth. There is nothing enticing one to the baleful destinies, but many are those who go there, for people consider the 4 snakes and the 5 desires to be precious to their deluded minds. What person would not wish to go back into the mountains and cultivate the path? But the reason no one proceeds is that one is fettered by cravings and desires. Nevertheless, even though people do not take refuge in mountain hideaways to cultivate the mind, as much as they can, they should not abandon wholesome practices. Those who can abandon their own selfish pleasures will be trusted and venerated like sages. Those who practice difficult feats of practice will be honored and revered like Buddhas. Those who are covetous and greedy toward material things are Mara's kith and kin. Those who make offerings with loving kindness and compassion are the Dharma King's offspring. High peaks and lofty crags are the dwellings of the wise. Cyan pines and deep valleys are the roosts of practitioners. Hungry, they eat tree fruits to soothe their famished bellies. Thirsty, they drink the flowing waters to quench their feelings of thirst. Though fed sweets and tenderly nurtured, this body is bound to decay. Though softly clothed and carefully protected, this life force must come to an end. The grottos with echoes resounding are halls for recollecting the Buddha's name. The wild geese plaintively calling are their soulmates. Their knees bent in prostration are as cold as ice, but they have no longing for the warmth of fire. Their starving bellies feel as if cut by knives, but they have no thought of searching for food. Suddenly, 100 years will have passed, so why don't we train? How much of this life is left? Yet still we do not cultivate, but remain heedless. Leaving behind the cravings within the mind, that is what we call a shramana. Not yearning for the mundane world, that is what we call a recluse. A practitioner entangled in the net of sensuality is a dog draped with elephant's hide. A person on the path with yearnings and longings is a hedgehog entering a rat's den. Even though a person be talented and wise, if he dwells in a village, all the Buddhas, for that person, will feel sorry for him. Even though a person does not practice the path, if he dwells in a mountain hut, all the saints for that person will generate thoughts of joy. Though talented and learned, a person who does not observe the precepts is like someone directed to a treasure trove, who does not even bother to set out to get them. Though practicing diligently, a person without wisdom is like someone who wishes to go east but instead turns toward the west. The practice of the wise is to prepare rice by steaming rice grains. The practice of the ignorant is to prepare rice by steaming sand. Everyone knows that eating food soothes the pangs of hunger. No one knows that studying the Dharma corrects their deluded thoughts. Conduct and understanding fully formed are like a cart's two wheels. Benefiting oneself and benefiting others are like the two wings of a bird. One who chants supplications when receiving rice gruel, but does not understand their meaning, before the donors, shouldn't he be embarrassed and ashamed? One who intones invocations when receiving a meal, but does not tumble to their import before the sages and saints, shouldn't he be embarrassed and ashamed? Humans despise maggots for not distinguishing between clean and filthy. Saints loathe shramanas who do not differentiate between the pure and impure. For leaving behind the clamor of this world and climbing into the empty sky above, the precepts serve as a skillful ladder. Therefore, one who breaks the precepts but seeks to become a field of merit for others is like a bird with broken wings, who tries to fly into the sky while bearing a tortoise on its back. One who has not freed himself from his own transgressions cannot redeem the transgressions of others. So how, without cultivating the precepts, can one accept others' offerings? A worthless body that does not practice, you may nourish it, but it's no help. This impermanent, evanescent life, you may cherish it, but it cannot be preserved. Those who seek the merit of dragons and elephants must be able to endure long hardship. Those who aspire to the lion's throne must forever turn their backs on sensual pleasures. A cultivator whose mind is pure will be praised by all the divinities. A person on the path who longs for sex will be abandoned by all the wholesome spirits. The four great elements will suddenly disperse. There is no guarantee they will subsist for long. Today, alas, it is already dusk. We really ought to have been practicing since the dawn. The pleasures of the world bring suffering later, so why would we cling to them? One instance of forbearance brings long happiness, so why wouldn't we cultivate? Persons on the path who crave for things are a practitioner's disgrace. Recluses who accumulate wealth are mocked by the noble. Despite warnings without end, craving and clinging are not brought to an end. Despite interminable second chances, we do not eradicate craving and clinging. Though we are engaged in endless activities, we still cannot forsake worldly matters. Though we make interminable plans for the future, they still are never enough. For todays without end, rife are our days of doing evil. For tomorrows without end, rare are our days of doing good. For this year's without end, we have not reduced the afflictions. For next year's without end, we have not progressed toward Bodhi. Hour after hour passes by, swiftly the day and night have passed. Day after day passes by, swiftly full and new moon days have passed. Month after month goes by, suddenly next year has arrived. Year after year goes by, unexpectedly we have arrived at death's door. A broken cart cannot move. An old man cannot cultivate. Lying down we are lazy and indolent. Sitting down our thoughts are distracted. How many lifetimes have we neglected to practice? And yet we pass the days and nights in vain. How many lives have we wasted? And yet in this lifetime we do not cultivate. This body must come to an end. But what of the next? Is this not urgent? Is this not urgent?